Good. So, it's the last session of the workshop. Before we wrap up, we may speed up the session a bit. So I made it in a very interactive way that we could all scan QR codes and start actively working on it. Need to see if we become that active. I'll just use it as a start. So anyway, become active afterwards. Drawing an open source safety critical landscape. This was actually something which came to my mind beginning of the year, more or less, when I figured out there are more and more projects which use which have safety criticality in mind and will target to be open source or are already open source. So this is the wrong heading. Basically got motivated by the systems work activities because we already saw yesterday and around and all the workshop theme that there is something beyond Linux and around and things. Some part of it, which you can see here, is basically what we have been seeing in some of the presentation with the system setup, with the microprocessor, microcontroller tooling part. I extended slightly, put in like frameworks, middleware libs, put the applications on top, put documentation and tracing at the bottom. And you see a gray frame around it, which basically indicates like here's some initiatives which target a lot of these fields and parts because don't get a direct allocation. And by this, what I figure out, we have requirements towards documentation, traceability, testing, build tooling, compiler, hypervisor, real-time and other operating system container. Maybe you can even say that the hypervisor is in OS. Would like to hear feedback. Container technology, middleware frameworks, whatever, IDEs. Based on this color coding, if you spot a mistake, let me know afterwards. I just draw the spot check and here you find swings, needs, and basal. Sorry that I didn't put strict talk in. It's there? See, I put strict talk in it. It was not modified. Oh yeah, no pass trace. I think yeah, this is my main part where I went in. I see like SPX safety profile falls into it, more on the tooling documentation side. Tractable is also framework of bringing this there. You see this color coding, LVM. I don't know why this color scheme and Ferrocene have another one. Yeah. I missed the one on Ferrocene most likely. So Ferrocene should be also compiler side. With safety critical Rust consortium is more on the grayscale. ELISA Sophie, AutoWare, they have a full stack tooling and a lot of the ecosystem around it. That's why they color gray. Icerix, Eclipse, Apex AI. Apex AI is also like a border case, but it goes more into middleware stacks. And well, this is like a spot check on landscape, but it's just one little box. And if you know CNCF or NF Energy or others, even the recently brought up Deutschland stack uses another way of showing a landscape. Here, that's good. This is like an NF Energy landscape mapping, which you can have. And you see that they group with categories, subcategories, and it's all based on the YAML description in there. So it's basically YAML file describing the landscape. And this looks a bit like you come up with categories, subcategories. If there's nothing in there, you keep things empty. You make descriptions, link things. And my idea was and is to create a similar view for safety critical parts. But maybe we come up with different categories, subcategories, or attributes which we want to put in. And this was the idea of the workshop topic. So yeah, I extracted basically what you can see here is category, subcategory. The name is the repeating thing because you need to describe what it is, and it gets content in there with URLs and so on. So this was my first thought on just writing something down which I saw. I found also more things like you can have additional repos if there's, you can mention a specific project or so. These are all fields which are potentially under consideration. And just to see like category would replace something like this bar, then subcategory would be here, and here would be the link. Sometimes the name if you don't have a logo, and then also status is marked here. Here we could, for example, go for another idea what could be in. Is it the standard? Is it something like what are values which we want to represent? And so this was my idea to just brainstorm a bit and write down some parts by what you throw in. Just from the experience point of view, let me shortly change to my web browser.
So are we just looking for open source or are we looking for commercial here too?
Open source.
Okay.
At least that's my preferred area of interest because of them. So here's the LF energy landscape thing. And what I like about, based on this description, you can also just go for like, here's some grouping. So this would be another thing, like what could be groups, which we see as potential options. You can have different parts also. You can have here the member thing. And it's not all one YAML. So there's more than one YAML mentioned in the landscape. But the idea is really like to come up, do we name what additional projects do you know, which should be added there? And depending on what you like, so you can see them the details with the description. Where it is in, I don't know if we want to get all this in there, but could be useful. But for me, it's first like to get a better overview and give people a chance to just look at the things. And I started with something as a Rust pad, because you could simply select and everybody with a link can just start editing in there. That makes collaboration easier. I also set up a theme pad which we used, which still believes that I'm French, and I have no clue why. Since forever. Or since ever. So it's like this. It basically contained the same description parts. And this will end up.
Like,
This is
seeing today, this week is obviously, we've got the requirements, traceability, we've got tooling now, so working on platform. Fast traceability.
Yep. So I made a first pull request yesterday evening after the workshop where it just started. So it's also possible to come in. I started with LLVM, which I brought in. I also put in just like say, here's a subcategory requirements. We could say static analysis tools, build tooling, which we see relevant. Operating system structured by real time. I put virtualization in there as I wasn't sure. I mean, kind of, it's a kind of operating system to a certain extent, right? Let's see what Xen can do. Then we have virtual as I call it AutoSD because it's the open source version of the Linux, which targets fit in the safety critical space, then a frameworks with middleware. So it's just really a plain start. So commenting on this also helps to just get some thought, and then I try to see that I set up the LF landscape tooling to just come to real representation of it. And now we would have two options. Either we just go for like a 5 minutes brainstorming on things to that. You scan one of the preferred QR codes and just edit something in there. So what you see are, if you have ideas for categories or other parts, just bring this in and then we can overall finish the session a bit earlier so we get easier. Oh yeah, thanks. Maybe a lunch because it was anyway be my last slide on it.
Yeah.
And here, you just went away from the presentation mode.
Is there a way to just channel the inputs to you? So you will be controlling, let's say, the input paths, and people will just tell you.
That's the second part. I mean, you can just start typing something in. You do not even need to follow the format, right? If you just come up and say like category, so you don't need to follow the YAML part or whatever. Just type in part or. This is the alternative in there. Let me just. Everybody who wanted to scan has. I also copied this, I guess, and give it to the chat that the virtual participants. So I mean, they can also scan, but I say most likely on a PC, it's maybe nice that you just click on the links rather than using the mobile phone and transfer everything. So here we go to the chat. So you have the PR, where you can just make comments, suggestions, whatever. We have the frame of that and part. And if I bring this one up as a presentation. Then we can also just type in something which you come up with, like say what are categories beyond what I already listed. Here, do we have more what we want to see as if you don't remember all the things which are there, just can also name them again. But I thought if I just write something down, starting like what would be attributes, ideas which I had, like it could be that the normal landscape would never ask like which standard is in there, but for us it could be interesting is it's an aerospace standard, is ISO 262, so it could be the integration, the industries.
So are you looking for things like, and
like if you
like for example, like where would you put something like Kimu or Renode or things like that? Because
Simulations.
simulation, so is that in the list?
simulator, see simulator is not in there. And example would be like just start. So this would like this is like when someone tells you here is an open safety critical open source landscape and you want to make use of it, so what would you look for? Like what project do you expect in there? What you want to know more about? What are fields which you're interested in? So that we basically just create a landscape which maps what you have in mind. Right, so either all these kind of field structures, what do you want to see? Because if I just start, I just get my thought into landscape, but I don't know if it fits. So it should be just a brainstorming, and then I work on it to fill it and create something.
Maybe a suggestion of this OGMA and Copilot runtime monitoring verification. And of course, NASA Red as a tool for this activity and also the traceability. Red, R-E-T. T and OGMA and Copilot. / Copilot.
OGMA /
Yeah, it's they are related.
Okay.
So runtime verification framework for real-time SQL.
And we are all in other sometimes.
Yeah.
Which is adds another dimension, for example, which I currently don't have in, right? So I don't have like industries also space can be a value in there as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was also thinking about creating some maybe like community exchange, so this could be a part of it. So I was thinking, hey, do we have a list of all conferences in the safety? So there's another safety conference going on this week. Missed, so is there an exchange platform where we can have question discussions? So And yeah, of course, it's also exchange about about the landscape and other projects, products, whatever. So
Mhm.
I was just thinking about it, and honestly, we have been thinking whether we at Wonders could organize something like this, that community gets better together, whatever. So
You know, if we can have a good luck, we have a good layout at upcoming conferences, we can figure out where does it make sense for us to go and talk about what we're trying to do to pull people in.
Yeah.
From.
where we meet, or just say, hey, I'm going to this conference, I'm going to this conference, so people know where to, who to meet where.
Yeah.
Things like that would be nice, but.
Yeah.
uh,
A lot of our working group calls maintain a group focus list. Maybe part of our TSC, we could actually pull a master list together. Because I think we do flow some of the working group material up, but we could sort of get a master schedule of events.
I was here then, the VDE, Stefan Friese, one of the authors from ISO 262, maintains a conference list there, so.
We
Interesting.
do this in one of the Discord channels, either the ELISA one or the LF Europe one.
That's a good idea.
If we maintain the list in the TSC, it's nice, but how many people do look into the TSC minutes? I mean, a TSC is a good place to talk about it, but then we need to publish it somewhere where people find it.
Yeah, I mean, it could be two things. It could be one, like say, here's a regular conference, which we put into landscape, and not giving more details on it, because it's also high effort to maintain always the updates. So you need to have someone who's really willing to do so. Otherwise, you will always show all data. But to say like there's a safe tag from TÜV, which is once in a year, typically in around May, or there is the VDE Sectronic is there, so that we just have religions. Yeah.
Our open source summit was a safety.
Yeah. That we just say like these are places where, or also for Rust, there are Rust conferences around, which also makes sense. So that we just, this can be part of the landscape. Yeah, and this would be
local.
I'm
sure there are similar stuff like we have here with Safetronic and SafeTech also in France and in the US, and a lot of places where maybe people want to talk about.
Yeah.
What I noticed that many conferences have a safety track, as we said, there next beginning of December, there's ESA, but software engineering conference, which is not a safety conference, but they do have a safety track. So,
Yeah.
So that is something we can say, hey, this 10% safety or this 100% safety. So maybe that's good to know.
And then quite frankly, the OSS conferences now have safe usage.
Yeah.
If we do that as a Discord, that'll actually save about 5 to 10 minutes in our working group calls. I know space and aerospace both spend a little bit of time. So if we centralize those and can point at it and more flash it up, highlight specifics, that'll actually be good.
Yeah, people could use it for these breakout conversation or Discord, then to have their mingling, planning.
And the basic idea would be to say, I mean, for safety conference, it's the point, if I get you soon. So for safety conference, you need to see like, does it make sense to be there from an open source perspective? So what is the value? And when we have open source conferences, we cannot lift all of them. So let's say, do we put in KubeCon or not as cloud native space? One of the hugest conferences, but most likely less relevant for the space. It could be, but I would say like, if we had conferences in there, we should see like, is there some relation to safety critical? Like the ESE one has safety critical traffic, some software engineering, so it fits in there so that we get this into, and this could actually be, if we compare it to like this landscape thing, this could be actually an own group here, like where we have energy members, this could be a grouping, then it gets an own entry and an own YAML file, because then it's not mixed up between like the ecosystem, but it's like where the ecosystem operates, and this could be a good fit, and this also helps to identify works. Yeah.
I have a comment. So don't we need tools to define relationships?
Yeah,
Relationship field to define how different items are related to each other.
this is, for example, what I also have a bit in mind, like with integration. So like who's integrating, so where is it integrated? So yeah, relationship goes more, but this was a similar thing which I had.
So along the lines on maybe integration is demos. What demos? Because if I'm just starting out, right? I'm probably gonna do Google search, right? And I mean, we talked about like the AGL demo, right? And there's some, yeah, and then yesterday in the last group that Mac did, he talked about the aerospace working group, how they actually had demos and proof of concepts as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's at the field demo, PUC, MVP, whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe also a person, so it might be interesting to see who is working on which person. So if I'm curious to meet Gap next time, and I go to his profile and see, oh, he will be in this conference, or I can ask him how this was. So just be connected, and or also to be in relationship to which project. So is it this project or is it this project? So I don't know whether this is
There's a little bit of functionality for that.
but they are not the projects. And
We have a collaboration. I think you speak. Because I was about to say what you just reinvented is LinkedIn.
yeah,
I mean,
LinkedIn for safety.
this going anyways a brainstorming idea, right? And it's just like what's going on in the mind.
On the energy though, did they actually show like the leads though? Like, is there like whoever's leading that project or maintainer or?
So what they have in here, you can go for, see what's in here, random one. Empty. Says repo not found, good first issues.
Maybe that's fine just to have that.
Maybe obsolete. What it would be, you can just search for. So this could be a bit more. Oh, here you can even see like calendar thoughts. The average meetings. Contributors. But they don't, it's direct.
Which is probably fine.
Yeah.
If you have at least that, is, I guess there's also the maintainability aspect of this as well, right? You get too much details that always have to be updated, and then you have this ongoing maintenance, so you can.
Contributors and so on. And this could also to some extent then later on tie into what we do with the lighthouse parts, right? So also there you can use, or you can link score. This could be some part here like scorecard or so, scorecard link. Because this is something which we would be interested in, right? Community health and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that generally I see there is no central meeting point for what's going on in safety and open source.
Well, we're getting close to being it.
Yes, exactly. What's going on in ELISA, everybody shows up and talks about their stuff.
And this is actually also which I see and I try to get. Well, we have it in ELISA. If you look in the seminar series, it
Yeah.
provides a broad spectrum.
Yeah.
It really goes compiler, use case standards,
Yeah, format stuff
tools.
that's
Yeah.
valid for everybody in every project, not just ELISA.
Yeah, he's already been, the Eclipse people have already reached out and asked him to redo that for them.
And
Yeah.
that's great, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this is where we are, and as you say, we do not have a central hub or so, and we know that's at the point we have a small ecosystem. Open source is huge. Linux itself is also huge. If you go for embedded Linux, it's getting smaller. If you go for regulated parts, critical infrastructure part of open source, it's also shrinking. And if you know, like, go for safety critical open source with Linux, you really end up in a very small niche of a niche. Right? It's not all, it's safety critical is a niche. Linux, embedded Linux is more niche, and we're just, overall, it's just too small, so we should see that we collaborate and integrate different parts. I mean, that's why I also like the systems work group, the systems work group activity, where we try to get in different projects, and where the goal can be to come like this, being a central hub and interface for safety critical open source within ELISA. We will not change the name.
Mhm.
It's
Thank you.
too nice. Will sound strange when you replace the L in ELISA to something, to an O. Try to pronounce it. It's not so easy. Well, anyway, yeah. So what I want to say is, I try to get more overview, and my personal goal would be to see, like, whenever I would like to see information about the safety critical open source space, I know that I can go to ELISA and I find valuable information there. Not only for Linux, because the people put Linux into system, and
Well, Linux is in most systems in the world.
it's in most systems, yeah. We had a board meeting from where Greg was in, and it was discussion about certain software stacks, AI parts, and so on, and how it's perceived. So we were basically, when we were looking also at the Deutschland stack there, and we saw no Linux in there. And Greg's comment was, what do the people actually believe they rely on? What is the whole infrastructure on it? All these AI things, everything, all the servers and so on, all run Linux. And they're ignoring the most part of it. And I think but this shows perception of it's just there. It's not taken, or it's just taken and not fully understood what impact it has. So that's, yeah. So this gives a good start. I will probably check if someone put something into the OSS next paper. Too much more, just one in Rostad. A bunch more, it's fine. So we will continue. I guess the discussion here goes well, and we can continue, and this will also, I will also take this as systems work group topic.
TSC?
To create the, I think we can put up TSC, but to create,
Okay.
like to fill the YAML file, and so I think this is to
Okay,
bring it
that's
to
fine.
operation, I would put it into the system scope.
Sure, fine.
Then,
That? We close this one off and we wrap it
Yeah,
up?
yeah.
Thank you very much.